Now that we have all of our dependencies installed and Firebase functions set up properly, we can go over to the package JSON, and what we can see here is that it has different scripts it can run. Scripts meaning that it is able to serve individual functions for Firebase out of the box. Now, the ones that we have is serve, shell, start, deploy, and logs. All of these have a very specific function. Deploy is going to deploy it live, and the shell is going to start a shell interface. The serve is going to serve it locally, and the logs is going to show us logs. Okay, so with that, the two most important ones we need to keep in our mind right now, as we're building something fairly simple, is the serve and the deploy. The deploy is going to push it live, so it's going to be hosted on Firebase at that point. And the serve is going to host it locally. Now, why would we want to host it locally, Mo? Why would we want to take our function and try it out locally? Well, while we're developing, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to test what we're doing in a local environment, so that if we did anything wrong at all, a for loop that went wrong, an infinite loop that's happening, anything at all, it can be caught before it goes live into production and potentially incurs us costs. And we have the benefit of developing locally before pushing globally, so we can test everything out locally. So what happens if we do yarn serve? Well, if we run yarn serve right now, it's going to host our functions on localhost 5001. And we can see it in the emulator UI through localhost 4000 function. Now it's saying watching the directory functions for cloud function. Interesting. So it's watching the directory. Right now we don't have any cloud functions. And if we go look at index.js, well, everything is disabled. So if we remove the marks over here and we save so that we use our ESLint and our prettier, what we're going to see is that, initialize the function http 5001/meals2go, so our project ID, /uscentral1/hello world. So this has become a function that is now being served locally by the Firebase emulator suite. So this is something that's emulating Firebase itself on our local machine so that we can run functions for Firebase, test them out on our machine. Okay, so what happens if I go to this URL directly? Well, it's going to say hello from Firebase. And hello from Firebase is exactly what we put in the response.send. Now, this is basically a Node.js function. It's a server, but it's running on Firebase as a singular instance, one function that's just going to do something for us. So if we say hello from Firebase, what we're going to see over here is if we refresh, and it updated. And over here, we can see how it updated, why it updated, when it updated, what execution it is currently running. So we can test all of that out. We can test our Firebase functions on our local machine. Super useful. And if you see any issues, you can report them. And you have the log inside of your terminal as well. That is so, so powerful. These are how we write functions. Okay, so what do we do now, Mo? Well, obviously we have this hello world, and obviously we have this different way that we need to write our functions. This doesn't really look like how we've written our React code, and that is completely fine because our Firebase functions are going to be written differently. Don't try to use import syntax here. Don't try to use anything fancy. We have to follow the structure that is given to us. And with that structure, we can build out two simple functions that are going to talk to Google for us. But before we do that, what I want us to do is I want us to migrate a portion of our app that is supplying us with mock information, right? We have mock information for locations, and we have mock information for our current restaurant searches. And I want us to move them into the Firebase function that is going to function as what's going to talk to Google, so that we can link our actual app to quote unquote server. So we're going to move everything that was mock into these functions. And then once we have these functions running locally with the mock and the app running in the same way, then we can start talking about building out our infrastructure to talk to Google. So let's get started on that.